The desert does not forgive the weak. The sun blazes without mercy, and the silence stretches beyond the horizon. Yet within that silence, one man found God. His name was Anthony, a young Egyptian who walked away from everything to enter the emptiness, searching for a light no eye could see. He would later be called Anthony the Great, father of monks. But he began simply as a man who heard a voice and decided to follow it. "Go, sell all that you have," Christ said in the gospel, "and come, follow me." Anthony heard those words in church one morning, and something in him broke open. He sold his land, gave his wealth to the poor, and left his village without looking back. The year was around 270 AD. He was 20 years old. He journeyed into the desert, not to escape the world, but to face it. The desert was more than sand and heat. It was the mirror of the soul. There, nothing distracted, nothing comforted, nothing lied. Every thought, every fear, every temptation rose like a storm. The desert, Anthony said, is a place of trial, where the soul is stripped bare and stands before God alone. He built a small shelter among the rocks near the Nile, living on bread and water, praying day and night. But solitude was not peace. The first years were a war against himself. He felt doubt, hunger, loneliness, the pull of the life he had left behind. Demons came to him in dreams, in whispers, in forms both terrifying and beautiful. He later told his followers, "The greatest battle is not with spirits, but with the heart." The film would open with a wide cinematic shot of the Egyptian desert at dawn. Endless dunes, shimmering gold, under a pale sun. Wind moves over the sand like breath. A lone figure walks across the horizon, his robe torn, his face weathered but resolute. There are no words, only the sound of wind and the faint beating of a heart. This is Anthony's beginning, not a man fleeing the world, but a man being born into silence. The narrator's voice would emerge, low and calm. He entered the wilderness, not to escape men, but to find the face of God. Anthony soon withdrew deeper into the inner desert, a cave carved into the rock, where he would live in near total isolation. For 20 years he saw no human face. Yet in that solitude, something changed. The man who entered the desert, burdened by fear, came to know a peace that the world could not touch. "Who sits in solitude," he said, "is released from 3 wars, hearing, speaking, and seeing. Yet there remains one battle, the hardest of all, the heart." He prayed for clarity, for purity of soul. And one night, as the stars burned above the sand, the light came. Not a vision, not an image, but a living presence, vast and silent. "The light filled the cave," he later said, "and I felt no fear, only love that burned without consuming." It was the first taste of what mystics would call hesychia, divine stillness. When he emerged years later, the people who saw him were astonished. His body was lean, his eyes bright, his voice quiet but strong. He spoke little, but when he did, hearts changed. "The one who knows himself," he said, "knows God." Disciples gathered around him, hungry for wisdom. They built small huts near his cave, and thus began monasticism, a new way of life born from the silence of one man's prayer. Anthony taught them not with lectures, but with presence. "Do not be surprised when trials come," he told them, "for without them, the soul cannot grow." He spoke of humility as the only shield against evil. Where humility dwells, the demons cannot enter. He warned against despair, calling it the enemy's greatest weapon. And he taught that prayer must be like breathing, unceasing, wordless, flowing through every heartbeat. "When the mind descends into the heart," he said, "then prayer is complete. The film's tone would be sparse and meditative, the palette gold and copper, sunlight reflecting off stone, the desert shimmering like a living flame. Music would be minimal, deep, resonant tones of strings and breath. Occasionally, a human voice would chant in Coptic, ancient and raw. The rhythm of the film would echo Anthony's life, stillness punctuated by flashes of struggle, silence growing into revelation. He became famous without wanting to. People came from far and wide to seek his counsel. Soldiers, scholars, peasants, even emperors. When the persecution of Christians began, he left his solitude and went to Alexandria to encourage the faithful. He faced death without fear. "Do not fear those who kill the body," he said, "for they cannot touch the soul." When peace returned, he went back to the desert. "The city has many voices," he said, "but I have chosen the one that speaks in silence." In his old age, Anthony lived on Mount Colzim, far into the eastern desert. His only companions were 2 disciples who cared for him. They said his face shone with quiet joy, and when he prayed, his whole being seemed to listen. He would often say, "I no longer fear death, for I see it as a door." His days were simple: prayer, work, rest, contemplation. Yet within that simplicity lay a depth that few ever reached. "The soul," he said, "is like a bird. If it remembers the sky, it will never be content with the dust." He continued to battle temptation until the end. "No one escapes struggle," he told his students. "Even if you live to be 100, the heart will still be tested." But his trials had become transfigured, no longer chains, but flames of purification. When a young monk asked how to overcome despair, Anthony smiled and replied, "Do not be proud when you are victorious, nor ashamed when you fall. Stand up and begin again, every day." In one of his last letters he wrote, "I saw the snares of the enemy spread over the whole earth, and I sighed, saying, 'Who can escape them?' And a voice said to me, 'Humility.'" Those words became his legacy, the wisdom of the desert, humility, silence, and unceasing prayer. In his final days, he called his disciples and spoke softly, "I go the way of the fathers. Be watchful, keep the faith, love one another, and remember that the Lord is your light." He gave them his staff, his sheepskin, and his blessing. Then, turning his eyes toward the rising sun, he whispered his last prayer. "Lord, receive my soul." The desert wind carried his breath away, and the silence deepened once more. After his death in 356 AD, his body was hidden in the desert to prevent veneration, as he wished. But his spirit remained, the spirit of the first monk, the flame that kindled generations of seekers. Monasteries rose across Egypt, Syria, Palestine, all tracing their origin to that solitary cave. His name became legend, but his message remained simple. God is not found in noise, but in silence. Not in power, but in purity of heart. The closing sequence of the film would show the desert at dusk, the sky a deep crimson fading to violet. The camera moves slowly through the rocks, returning to Anthony's empty cave. Inside, a small flame flickers in the darkness, the eternal light of prayer. The narrator's voice, soft and steady, would speak his final words. "A time will come when men will go mad, and when they see someone who is not mad, they will attack him, saying, 'You are mad, because you are not like us.'" The music swells with quiet gravity. A single string, a heartbeat, then silence. In that silence, the desert itself seems to breathe, alive, luminous, infinite. And thus ends the story of Saint Anthony of the Desert, the flame in the wilderness. A man who sought solitude and found communion, who entered the emptiness and discovered it full of God. His life became a beacon for all who wander through the deserts of their own hearts, searching not for miracles, but for meaning. For in every wilderness, there burns a hidden flame, the flame of divine love that never dies.